It is packed with targeted policies that help struggling Americans who've already waited entirely too long.
Our purpose has always been to crush the virus, to put money in the pockets of the American people, which we do in this legislation.
It is a strong shot in the arm to help American families weather the storm.
The deal will include some coronavirus relief, but apparently it won't include the extension of paid and family leave for anyone who can't work because of COVID-19. And joining us to discuss this is Vicki Shabo, a senior fellow at New America and expert in paid leave. Vicki, thank you for joining us. Can you start off by telling us why you feel the exclusion of this paid leave in this package is so dire?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Renita and Scarlett. This is dire because on January 1st, as folks wake up to a new 2021, 87 million workers, including 60 million private sector workers and their employers, will lose the ability to have emergency paid sick leave and childcare leave during the rest of this pandemic. Congress initially passed legislation back in March, but those provisions expire on December 31st, leaving millions of workers vulnerable when they get sick, when they need to quarantine, when they need to get a COVID test. And for the 31 million parents potentially who may need paid leave that they can no longer take because their kids are in virtual school or no school or because they've lost their childcare due to COVID.
Vicki, it sounds like workers who are infected with the coronavirus will essentially be forced to choose between losing pay or going into work, potentially infecting others.
Nancy Pelosi on the 600 direct payment checks.
We also have in the legislation direct payments, which were not in the Republican bill, to America's working families. I would like them been bigger, but they are significant.
You think Nancy Pelosi has any incentive to fight for those she doesn't relate to financially and goes out of her way to prove the system works in her favor?
It's but one more example of good things happening to powerful members of Congress. Another is the access to initial public stock offerings, the opportunity to buy a new stock at insider prices just as it goes on the market. They can be incredibly lucrative and hard to get.
If you were a senator, Steve, and I gave you $10,000 cash, one or both of us is probably going to go to jail. But if I'm a corporate executive and you're a senator and I give you IPO shares in stock, and over the course of one day, that stock nets you $100,000, that's completely legal.
And former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her husband have participated in at least 8 IPOs. One of those came in 2008 from Visa, just as a troublesome piece of legislation that would have hurt credit card companies began making its way through the House. Undisturbed by a potential conflict of interest, the Pelosi's purchased 5,000 shares of Visa at the initial price of $44. 2 days later, it was trading at $64. The credit card legislation never made it to the floor of the House. Congresswoman Pelosi also declined our request for an interview, but agreed to call on us if we attended her news conference.
Madam Leader,
I wanted to ask you why you and your husband, back in March of 2008, accepted and participated in a very large IPO deal from Visa. At a time there was major legislation affecting the credit card companies making its way through the House. And did you consider that to be a conflict of interest?
I don't know what your point is of your question. Is there some point that
you don't think it was a conflict of interest, or had the appearance of a conflict of interest?
It only has the appearance if you decide that you're going to have elaborate on a false premise. But it's not true, and that's that.
Corporate executives, members of the executive branch, and all federal judges are subject to strict conflict of interest rules, but not the people who write the laws.
Vaccination distribution funding. What does that have to do with stimulating the pockets of those who can't pay rent or buy food or are out of work? You have to read the fine print. You want government assistance? Get vaccinated. You want to reopen your businesses and pay your employees? Mandate vaccinations in your workplace. $15 billion to live event venues. Mandate vaccinations and we will take care of your losses while you slowly progress with newly vaccinated citizens entering your stadiums for sporting and music events. $25 billion in rental assistance. Mandate vaccinations if you're a landlord of a property, and assistance will be given to those with proof of vaccination who wish to reside in your building. Satan is the god of excess hiding in Christianity. What is not being told to you while you struggle or your small businesses suffer is the bill retroactively permits the unconstitutional $7.3 billion church bailout under the CARES Act and opens up a second round of funding for religious worship under the current bill. Pastor Marcus Lamb of Daystar applied and received $3.9 million in PPP funding, and 2 weeks later bought a multi-million-dollar private jet. Catholic Church went bust for raping children and paying victims of child abuse, got in on PPP with $1.4 and $3.5 billion. Aslan, a made-up church in Florida that happened to defraud the almighty smart government in $8 million in PPP loans. Joel Osteen pocketed $4.4 million in PPP loans.
Good evening. TV evangelist Jimmy Swaggart is leaving his fate to the Lord and church leaders tonight after confessing that he sinned.
Tears filled his eyes as Swaggart took the pulpit in Baton Rouge, Louisiana this morning to beg forgiveness. Channel 5's Tim Herrera reports tonight Swaggart is stepping down from his powerful TV ministry while the Assembly of God Church investigates him for having an affair with a prostitute.
Jimmy Swaggart's the top-rated preacher on TV. He leads a multi-million-dollar evangelical empire. Now he's confessed to a moral mistake, and he's pulling away from the pulpit for a while.
I have sinned against you, my Lord.
Comes back and was able to acquire between $2 to $5 million in PPP loans.
When we talked in 1996, I asked him about his brand of Christianity. You had preached that God wanted his subjects to live a lavish or successful lifestyle. You quoted from the New Testament, "I pray you will be in good health as your soul prospers." Did you really feel that God was advising you to acquire material wealth?
I really felt that prosperity gospel was the truth. I really thought that God wanted us to not have any problems, not have any sickness, not have any pain.
Yes, but that's not the same as God wanting you to have lots of money, expensive clothes, huge salaries, lots of luxuries. We're not talking about health and pain.
Yes. But I really sincerely believed in what I was teaching. Our ministry just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And there were more people and more donations every year.
Renew your pledge in the name of the Lord.
But questions were being raised about what all these pledges were paying for. In 1978, the Charlotte Observer started publishing articles about the misuse of PTL funds. It sparked a 5-year-long FCC investigation.
Comes out of retirement to be sued for claiming products sold through his ministry cured COVID. He was still able to attain $350,000 and $1 million in government funding. Televangelist Pat Robertson declares Biden will be president and Trump lives in an alternate reality.
With all his talent and the ability to raise money and draw large crowds, the president still lives in an alternate reality. He really does. people say, well, he lies about this, that, and the other. But no, he isn't lying. To him, that's the truth.
I'm not defending Trump, but while we're on the subject of liars and alternate realities, let's talk about this Christmas tree in the back.
This is David, who says, we have friends who do not celebrate Christmas because they say December 25th is really a pagan holiday. While I agree that Jesus may not have been born on December 25th, he certainly was born as described in the Bible. How do I respond to them?
Well, in a sense, tell them they're right. You see, the winter solstice a couple of days later was the shortest day of the year, and the pagans had something called Saturnalia. And it was a time of lawlessness because all the laws were suspended. And people, a bunch of singers actually wandered the streets naked singing. And then they had orgies, sexual orgies. It was a mass thing. Well, when the Catholic Church came along in Italy, the Romans and others didn't want to give up their holidays. So they said, okay, we'll Christianize it. And so they said, okay, we'll say the birth of Jesus was the 25th of December. So all this business about mistletoe, pagan. Christmas trees, pagan. Giving out gifts, pagan. Every bit of it is pagan. Every single bit of it is pagan. We've Christianized it all. And so that's good. And so we have time, we celebrate for Jesus, and everybody gets all misty-eyed.
This man has been on TV for decades preaching lies. And because you confuse being on TV with truth, you truly believe Christmas isn't idolatry. Your intentions are pure because they Christianize worshiping the Most High God through Satan. If you don't care about the Bible or God, enjoy your holidays. To those who call yourself believers in the blood of the Lamb, you are pagans, the way Rome intended.
I thought we might have a little reading from the scripture from America's putative next president, that self-proclaimed devout, mass-going Catholic, Joe Biden. Take it away, Deacon Joe.
And if we do, and I'm sure we can proclaim the palmist, with the palmist who wrote these following words: "The Lord is my strength and my shield."
Sorry, did he just call the book of Psalms the book of palms?
Some of you think that all you have to do is survive until the Great Reset. All your debts and loans are canceled with this Build Back Better slogan.
President-elect Joe Biden is weeks away from taking office, but his presidency already has a growing conspiracy following it. It is called the Great Reset. The theory accuses Mr. Biden of playing a part in a global economic plan that will ultimately lead to a dystopian society.
Pope Francis called for the urgent need for an economic system that is fair, trustworthy, and capable of addressing the most profound challenges facing humanity.
And as we move from rescue to recovery, therefore, we have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. So we must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play.
3 generations of liars, murderers, and child rapists who have more money than 3 lifetimes telling you a better economy is coming. When has the wicked ever done anything to benefit you without a catch-22? Donald Trump signed an executive order promoting neoclassical architecture as the official style for federal buildings. Societies have long recognized the importance of beauty public architecture. Ancient Greek and Roman public buildings were designed to be sturdy and useful. Read the book of Obadiah to find out what happens to all of these sturdy and useful buildings that have been passed down to one generation to another and by the same bloodline that is the only bloodline mentioned that the Most High God hates. This is where they spawn from, as I mentioned in my RH negative video and my So Easy a Caveman Can Do It video about the lineage of the Edomites breeding with Horites, aka cave dwellers. And what you see before you is where some of those Roman so-called illuminated bloodlines came from, a cave. If a racist tells you to go back to Africa or wherever you came from, tell them to go back to their cave.